All right, I'd like to call the Finance, Ways and Means Committee back to order for February the 24th, 2026. And members, if you would, please log into your machines in front of you. And be sure to enter the meeting as well. All right, the next budget hearing is the Department of Economic and Community Development, and I do see our commissioner and team with him. If you all would make your way to the table, please. Members, just a reminder that the budget presentations are on the dashboard, so you can log on and follow along. And without further ado, without objection, we are going to go out of session. We are out of session. Commissioner McWhirter, thank you for being here, and you may begin. Just a reminder that we do control the microphone, so once you see that red light come on, you may begin. If you would, just begin with the introductions and who you have with you. Thank you.
Sir, thank you for the opportunity to present our budget. Mr. Chairman, committee members, I'm Stuart McWhirter, Commissioner of the Department of Economic and Community Development. With me is Deputy Commissioner Alan Borden, Assistant Commissioner Brooks G. Carlton, Assistant Commissioner Jessica Johnson, and at the end is Bob Rains, who is our Director of the Tennessee Entertainment Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to present our budget, fiscal year 27 budget. As we present this budget, we do so in the final year of the Lee administration, a moment that invites both reflection and resolve. Under Governor Lee's leadership, Tennessee has pursued a clear vision of fiscal discipline paired with intentional investments that strengthen communities, expand opportunity, and support long-term economic competitiveness. This budget represents the continuation of that vision, ensuring that the progress made over the past several years is sustained and that Tennessee remains well-positioned for future success. While recruiting companies and creating jobs remain central to our mission, this year's request tells a broader story, one of innovation, resilience, and collaboration. Each cost increase we request directly supports initiatives that are not only driving economic success today, but also laying the foundation for Tennessee's economic future. On the next slide, we have a list of all of our line items, and I'll just walk through these very briefly. The first is our request for $25 million of non-recurring dollars for the Nuclear Supply Chain Fund. Tennessee's innovation ecosystem continues to expand as we position our state at the forefront of advanced technology research and manufacturing. Since the creation of this fund in 2023, the fund has helped attract more than 3,000 net new jobs and more than $10.9 billion in capital investment. I know we'll have some questions about the nuclear fund, and I'll reserve those additional comments for those questions. For the next line item is the Tennessee Entertainment Commission's request for $20 million non-recurring dollars. The Tennessee Entertainment Commission continues to strengthen the over $8 billion creative economy and elevate Tennessee's global reputation. Since 2007, Entertainment Commission has supported 134 incentivized productions, generating an estimated 8,900 jobs and over $500 million of earnings. This budget increase is transformational investment for the Entertainment Commission. It will amplify Tennessee's global brand, expand tourism, grow tax revenue, and ensure that our rich creative heritage continues to generate long-term economic and cultural returns for decades to come. We know that since 2007, for every dollar granted from the state, we receive $8 in investment, which has about an $865 million economic impact to our state. On the next line item, we're requesting $25 million non-recurring for the Rural Development Program. Rural prosperity remains central to our mission. The Rural Development Fund supports a range of grant programs that you all are well aware of, including site development, infrastructure planning, Main Street, downtown improvement, 3-star, rural fellowship initiatives, and the Go Fund. Sustained economic growth. Demand for the programs continues to grow. Applications received outpaces funding available year over year. These investments also have a generational impact, improving livability, expanding infrastructure, supporting small businesses, and increasing access to federal grants. The Grant Opportunity Fund, in particular, helps rural communities compete for major federal programs by providing necessary matching funds that many small communities otherwise could not afford. And one thing that's just to note, we've had across all 95 counties, about 85% population growth across the state. So there's continuing demand and need in our most rural parts of our state. The fourth line item is a request for $1 million recurring and $1 million non-recurring for $2 million for the Ag Launch program. Agriculture, as you know, is Tennessee's largest industry, and Ag Launch is at the forefront of modernizing it. This funding will expand the Ag Launch Farmer Network, connecting innovation with farmers and startups to test and scale new ag tech solutions that improve efficiency and sustainability. The fifth line item is the Flight Incentive Program. We are requesting $1.5 million non-recurring for this program. Connectivity fuels commerce. The Flight Incentive Program supports the recruitment of direct international flights to strengthen Tennessee's access to global markets. This program has offset costs related to the recruitment of direct international flights from Tennessee to many countries that we do business with across our department. We have, as you know, a very robust foreign direct investment strategy, and the evidence is there with all of the announcements and projects that we've announced over the last many years. This is a very important component to our recruiting. The sixth item is the request for just over $538,000 recurring for the development districts. This request fulfills legislative commitments to support Tennessee's development districts, which serve as regional planning and coordination entities. These funds enable the districts to deliver efficient, well-planned economic and infrastructure projects that meet the diverse needs of communities across the state. The next item is the request for $20 million non-recurring for the Quantum Infrastructure Initiative. Our department seeks $20 million in funds to boost quantum computing, targeting what we believe is significant federal matching dollars. Tennessee aims to lead in quantum technology, utilizing resources like Oak Ridge National Lab, EPB in Chattanooga, Vanderbilt, University of Tennessee Chattanooga, University of Tennessee Knoxville, Arnold Air Force Base, and MTSU to drive high-wage job growth across multiple sectors. This investment emphasizes shared infrastructure and workforce development to enhance industry collaboration and facilitate quantum technology adoption. The next item is the ETSU Eastman Valley Brook iLab. We're requesting $2.5 million non-recurring for this project. ETSU Research Corporation is endeavoring to develop a biomanufacturing scale-up facility from benchtop through pilot scale. This will build synergistically upon efforts laying the foundation for a grassroots biomanufacturing economy in rural Northeast Tennessee, including ongoing workforce development projects, entrepreneurs, small business support projects, and special projects with local industry partners, and research commercialization efforts. These funds will be used to provide needed infrastructure, building enhancements, and equipment. On the next slide is our supplemental request, again, for the development districts of $30,000. We're requesting $30,000 supplemental for fiscal year 25-26. This request fulfills the legislation effective beginning fiscal year 26 to support the development districts established in code. So to conclude, this budget represents more than a financial request. It represents a commitment to the people and communities across our great state. This fiscal year 27 budget proposal ensures that Tennessee continues to grow smarter, stronger, and more connected with an economic development strategy that serves every community and every Tennessean. From innovation R&D initiatives in Oak Ridge and Nashville to workforce development programs in rural areas, every investment tells a story of collaboration and impact. Our programs are transforming vacant buildings into vibrant downtowns, connecting isolated regions through broadband and air travel, and preparing the next generation for high-quality careers. In the following slides, we've included a snapshot of the department's achievements and accolades over the course of Governor Lee's administration and in the calendar year 2025. I'll just briefly touch on these as we conclude. On the next slide, just a couple things across the top. During Governor Lee's administration, this is just from our department as we track projects, 680 projects, over 108,000 net new jobs. 44% of those, by the way, across the entire 7 years have landed in rural Tennessee, which is remarkable. And a capital investment of just over $52 billion. Here again, close to half of that come from foreign direct investment. One thing I will note, because of the nuclear industry on the middle right side, that number has actually changed since we printed that. It's we have close to $11 billion now in capital investment and right at 3,000 net new jobs just in the nuclear industry efforts that we've had. On the next slide for 2025, we had a very active year. I'll just point out again, the capital investment in 2025 was just over $11 billion. Again, a strong foreign direct investment presence in that regard. And in the middle, you'll see projects in rural Tennessee in 2025 was 55%. And even in 2026 isn't a slide we have, but we've already closed close to 10 deals, almost 1,000 new jobs, and $2.1 billion just in this calendar year. Last but not least, again, just accolades. I'll just point to the first one. We just recently, as a state, was named #1 in nuclear development by the American Nuclear Society. So the brand is strong. Doing business in Tennessee is a state where a lot of businesses and industry want to be. They want to come here, raise their family, and employ great Tennesseans. And so with that, that concludes my presentation, and happy to answer questions. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner, thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation, the information. We got several folks on the list for some questionings, and I'll kick us off here. On your second slide there, a couple of things I want to look at. The first thing that would be remiss if I didn't say thank you for putting in the 2.5 for ETSU and for Valley Brook, a very important project up in Northeast Tennessee, and hopefully this will help with that. So thank you very much for putting that in there. And then talking about the rural development funds. So the carry forward, 96.3 million, another additional 25 million non-recurring for this particular fiscal year. Talk a little bit about those grants. I guess is the amount that we have in that tranche of money, is that supporting the needs that we actually have, the grants coming in? Talk about those grants that don't get funded as well as the ones that do.
Sure. And I'll just say simply, and I'm going to ask Brooksy to answer specifically here, but as I mentioned in my comments, we have more demand than the need. You know, the need is there. We have more demand than we can provide in grant dollars, and we do have quite a bit of activity going on. Brooksy and her team do a fantastic job navigating, the complexity of that. But Brooksy, would you like to answer, some of those questions, Chairman's questions?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Brooksy Carlton, Assistant Commissioner for Community and Rural Development. The 96 million, 98 million that you quoted, most of that funding is obligated. It is under contract with the grants. They're just reimbursement grants. So it takes us sometimes up to 2 or 3 years to draw down those funds. So we have very little carryover from year to year that has not already been obligated. And we do get more applications for all of our grant programs than we can fund. Our average is about 50 to 60% is what we can find when we get applications in. Some of the programs we can do a little bit higher than that, but we do have usually about 50% of the projects that we can't fund. We try to do a lot of technical assistance for the communities that don't get grant funding. Maybe the project wasn't eligible or it just wasn't a strong application. And so we can go in and meet with the communities and help them develop a better application so that they can apply again for the next year.
Is this direct funding straight from the state to the entity, or does this pass through to the cities, counties, development districts? How's this money actually doled out?
We have contracts with those organizations that you mentioned. Most of our grants are to cities and counties, but also economic development organizations and chambers. Okay,
gotcha. All right, thank you very much. Let's move on to our next questioner. Chairman Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Commissioner McWhorter and all of you folks. It's great to see you today. And Tennessee is leading in nuclear. I mean, we are crushing it right now. I'm so proud of everything that's going on. And I'm on the Southern States Energy Board, and down there, you know, when they look at the different states and kind of do a caricature of each one, I mean, Tennessee is known for our nuclear innovation, and no doubt a lot of that comes from Oak Ridge. And the governor's really gotten on board with this. And going back to fiscal year 2024, since then, we've had a total of about $120 million that have been appropriated. And I'll read off all the different things that nuclear investments, including Small Modular Reactor Grant Fund, the Nuclear Industry Initiative Grant, the Nuclear Development Fund, and the Nuclear Energy Supply Chain Investment Fund. And proposed in this year's budget is a $25 million for nuclear industry initiative grants. And so the question I have is, can you, at some point, did nuclear money just go to the different ones? Did we kind of pull it together and disperse it out, or did each of those stay siloed through the last few years?
Yes, great, good question. I would say they're siloed out. Now, the Nuclear Energy Supply Chain Fund is where we have been providing incentives for a lot of the projects we've announced over the last 2 years. Those projects get incentivized, net new jobs, mostly through that particular fund. And I believe over the last several budget cycles, I think it's 70 million is the total that we've had allocated. It was 50 to 10 and 10. I believe that's correct. That's correct. And so we track that. I've got a sheet here that shows where the dollars have gone, what's been obligated, and what we have kind of remaining from that fund, which is why we're asking in this particular budget, we're asking for an additional 25 million that would be dedicated to this particular fund that we're providing incentives for these projects, if that's answering your question. Now, some of the other aspects we do have, we set aside some dollars to support other nuclear related activities, but that's not necessarily out of the incentive fund that we utilize.
The 59 million that carried forward, is that for that, where does that go, I guess is what I'm asking.
So the 59, you want to answer this, Jessica? I would imagine that a portion of that 59 is this Nuclear Energy Supply Chain Fund that we utilize, but there's additional dollars in that as well that's outside of that, correct?
Am I on? Okay. Yeah, so the carry forward was for the initial nuclear energy fund that Commissioner was referring to. The subsequent modular reactor dollars, the other 50, which would make your 120, was appropriated in this current fiscal year. So it wasn't carried forward. But yes, so a number of the incentivized projects, there were some workforce elements that went to some universities and other, nuclear projects were where the $59 million was carried forward for.
Okay, and the 25 million for this year that you're asking for, is that for the supply chain fund?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, that's all I've got.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And just for context, if this is helpful, if you look at what has been announced, projects that we've announced, the incentives that associated with those announcements is just shy of 50 million across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, roughly 7 projects. Then we have another 21 million that's either allocated towards site development support or workforce development specific to the nuclear energy sector. That again coming out of the supply chain fund, and that leaves roughly a balance of just around $7 million of unobligated dollars, and that's over the 2-year period. The 70 million. The way we look at it is, even it's committed, whether it's committed or obligated, we have about $7 million remaining. And if we look at what's in the pipeline right now, we're not going to have enough to incentivize these projects with the remaining 6.9 million, which is why we're coming forth with this request.
Chairman Boyd.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to say this. I know that members of the committee, we all have different opinions on economic development and funds that are used, but I will tell you, this money is very well spent. And I'm so excited about this. I hope we'll continue to fund this. We're doing the work. I mean, a lot of the nation is looking at us and wanting us to get this done and for the nuclear industry. And so I'm so proud of what's going on. And these dollars are going to pay a huge dividend in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next on the list, Representative Reeves, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Commissioner McWhorter, good to see you and
Thank
your
you.
team today. And I just kind of want to build a little bit on what Chairman Boyd was asking about with nuclear. This may be a little bit of a softball, and I don't want you to give away all of our secret sauce, but here it is. The presentation indicates that the American Nuclear Society has ranked Tennessee as #1 for nuclear development. What exactly are we doing that sets us apart from other states in that regard?
Thanks for that question. I think it's doing what we're talking about, is setting aside these dollars specific to the industry. But maybe more importantly, it's decades of Oak Ridge National Labs and, all originating with the Manhattan Project. And you've got a community and a workforce that's there. You've got land, you've got expertise that exists in a community that really is unique. And I think one of the reasons why we as a state continue to have a lot of success with, great global brands is because they recognize that their success is dependent on where they go, and they know that they have a really good chance of success in our state. And that has a lot to do with Oak Ridge. So it's a combination of just a lot of good things that's happened over many, many decades to get us to this point.
Representative Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it is amazing to see where we are, given that, 10, 15 years ago, I think it would have been unthinkable that we'd be #1 in nuclear of all things. Yeah. And, we've got the pressures of AI and data centers and all those needs for power. And so I think it's a great thing that Tennessee's doing that. I do have one other question for you. In the questionnaire, I know that ECD retains up to 5% of the $10 million in funding appropriated for the Nuclear Energy Supply Chain Investment Fund for administration of that grant, but not other grant funds necessarily. So are you guys retaining a percentage of the funds because it was funded by the fast track reserves? Is it related to that funding
You
mechanism?
want to answer that, Jessica?
No, it's not related to the fast track reserves at all. Typically, in order to operate the grant program, there is some administrative cost that is necessary for the fund. So we have only carved out, I think, a little less than $100,000 or so out of the 70 million for the fund operations. And we only do it if we need to. If there's some administrative cost that's specific to the particular grant and specific to the execution and administration of this particular grant, then we'll carve out only what we need in order to operate.
Yeah,
Representative Reeves.
thank you. Just one more question on it. And I think you probably answered the question, but I just want to make sure that no positions are being funded with those funds that are being retained.
No, we have
Okay.
absorbed the cost of operating the nuclear program in the operations of our department.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I would just say that, add just one simple thing. We've got a great business development team, and we've had a few on our team that have really locked in on nuclear and the nuclear industry. And so they were already on our team, already doing the recruiting. And so they've just added this industry as part of their portfolio.
Great. Amazing work, guys. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you very much. Next on the list, Chairman Williams. Chairman Williams, you recognize.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Representative Miller is always between me and the commissioner at every hearing, but I had a couple questions for you. First of all, let me say great work. Really appreciate the work that you and your team does. There's a reason why we're successful, and that has to do with good leadership, and I really appreciate your work there, especially Alan, since he's been around for so long. But I did have a question about ag launch. Last year, the governor put in $1 million recurring. We took that out. I'll be completely transparent. I'm a little bit curious as to how this process works. Is ag launch much like Launch Tennessee in the way it operates, but it's just ag driven, or are they completely different?
I would say very different. In fact, if I may,
Yeah.
So Ag Launch in the past have received grant dollars through Launch Tennessee, as they have with, if you're the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, or if you're in Knoxville or Memphis, they allocate a certain amount on a formula basis to these entrepreneur centers, and Ag Launch was considered one of their partners.
Okay.
We recognize collectively, Launch Tennessee, Ag Launch, and our department recognize that there was a real need and desire to lean in much more deliberately with Ag Launch. And what we did, where Ag Launch can be considered, they're looking at technologies across the globe. We reversed our thinking in terms of our interaction from our department is how can we help our Tennessee farmers. And what can we do to bring the Ag Launch platform to bear with our Tennessee farmers with new ag tech and new technologies to provide efficiency to their operation? And that's what this is about. So we've basically stepped in where Launch Tennessee was providing dollars at, called a couple $100,000 a year, just wasn't enough. And we said, look, let's lean into this and provide more meaningful dollars, but focus it on our Tennessee farmers only with technology that could exist anywhere. And so that's what this is. It's really, it's baby steps toward that. Knowing that those dollars got removed last year, we're trying to step back into it because we feel that there is a demand and a need. The farming and ag community is telling us this. And so we're just trying to match that up and having a much more meaningful relationship with Ag Launch to do that.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that I have with Ag Launch is my assumption is they're a nonprofit. So, but they're retaining a portion of those of their rewarded. They have a group of finalists, and those finalists go and they compete for dollars for capital. But they also contractually retain a portion of ownership of those businesses. If they do that, are those portions of those businesses retained by the state or by Ag Launch because of our investment?
No, I don't think we have any ownership in it as a state. This is just really providing supports to enhance the program and really provide the value to the farming community, the ag community.
Yeah, I guess that's part of the challenge that I have with the monies is the state's making the investment. The individual entity is retaining ownership of these contractually of these businesses, and then the citizens aren't a beneficiary of that investment. And so it kind of a little bit of a challenge there.
Well, and I know Brooksy spends a lot of time on this. What is say? This is really designed to provide benefit to the farming ag community. So I would just say there is benefit in that regard. This is really intended to provide resources and tools that the ag community would not have had access to otherwise. So I don't know, Brooks, if you want to try to add more.
Yes, thank you. I will just add that the farmers who participate in their farm network do have equity in the companies that they work with. And I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and they had a farmer panel, and the farmer said, if I didn't participate in this, I would have to wait a couple of years till it got to market. I wouldn't have any say in how it's developed. I wouldn't own any equity in it. And I would have to pay full retail price for it. So those farmers have incentive to participate in the program, and they do have equity, and it's a great way to grow that. And that's what some of this funding is going to go to, is growing that farmers network and making sure that, we spread that out across the state into some of our biggest ag communities.
Okay, thank you. The direct international flight monies, is that for an existing flight that's there, or is that for a new flight?
There are two projects in the works that we hope to land collectively, no pun intended, with some airlines that are looking to into Europe.
Okay, sounds great. I know we've done this before, but it was assigned to of course, we knew what the flight was, who the airline was, and what it was going, and so having it there without not saying who it is, it makes perfect sense now. I did have a question though about Quantum. I can spell it. That's about it. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what we're doing here. Obviously, we're leading in nuclear. I think it's important that we lead in quantum. Could you give us? You didn't mention some of the institutions of higher learning across the state where some of this money is going to be going. So could you define for the layman what quantum is and what the strategy may be with these monies going forward?
Sure. Thank you for that question. We started a conversation with the governor last year about, quantum computing and what that looks like in the state of Tennessee. And, we have, as a state, we're very unique. We have a public quantum network supercomputer in Chattanooga with EPB, and then a private network in Oak Ridge National Labs. And both are well recognized in the industry, and we're a very unique state to have that. So the question is, how do we, whether or not quantum is commercially applicable in the next year or two or 10 years from now, the question is, what are we doing from infrastructure perspective to be competitive whenever that time is right. And that was the question that we posed and we started exploring. What we found is that despite the what's happening in Chattanooga and Oak Ridge, there is a connectivity gap, and we need as a state, as we did just with broadband, as we thought about what broadband was in our state 7, 8, 9 years ago. I remember when I was F&A commissioner, we were allocating $10 or $15 million a year. We thought that was a big deal, but we soon realized we're not going to get everybody broadband going at $10, $15 million a clip. We need help. And so this is in a lot of ways what we're talking about. There is an infrastructure spend that needs to take place. We need to connect. It's in the ground, it's fiber, but you're connecting these supercomputers so that you create this network. And then it allows you to utilize it commercially where startups can get involved, businesses can utilize that. There's a workforce component to it. There's even higher education and training, but that can't happen yet. These dollars, the 20 million that we're asking for, is specific to infrastructure. And what we're specifically doing is we're having conversations with the federal government saying that, hey, as a state, we're willing to put our own dollars to work, but we need you to help. And we may be the only state raising our hand saying this because we have this unique asset in our state, and we should be doing it. And so that's what that's for. We're hoping that over the next couple months, we'll get some good feedback from the federal government that they'll be willing to match the money we put at hopefully at a 5 to 7x our 20, because it's going to cost that. And so that's specifically what we're trying to do. Now, if we're not successful getting the federal government to participate, I would argue that we don't spend the money. I would say we leave it alone. We can put it back in the general fund, or we can hold it for next year and see how we do with the next administration. I don't know, but that's the position that I have maintained. And in talking to a lot of folks around the state that we're working with, they believe that that's the right investment we make today. You know, Governor Lee's been a governor of infrastructure investments. I think this is consistent, you know, with what he's been doing the last 7 years. And we feel this is a great way to finish out his time.
Thank you. So obviously, until you hear back from the feds, you're not going to deploy in this capital. But if you do hear back positively, do you see, you referenced broadband. I mean, with federal dollars and state dollars, we spent over $1 billion in the last 7, 8 years in broadband. Do you think that Quantum could eventually be that sizable of investment?
It could be, you know, and I think recognizing that if it gets to that scale, we need, you know, as a state, I think we need to get, you know, the federal and including the private sector. There's private sector companies willing to invest, just like they're talking about investing in, you know, on the AI side on energy and generation. They're willing to stroke the check to figure out the generation problem. I think the private sector is interested in partnering on the quantum side as well. But I think the broadband analogy is a good analogy in this case. When there's questions asked about these dollars, that's the same concept. And by the way, you know, I think you all know the BEAD program was reduced significantly, but we were, you know, successful in getting this last round, and we believe that hopefully soon we'll be able to announce some great things, and where we can say all Tennesseans have access. But that's essentially what we're trying to do here. Quantum is sort of the next generation of connectivity. And because the fact that we have what we have in our state in Oak Ridge and Chattanooga, I think it would be a missed opportunity for our state if we're not doing and talking about these investments today.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do have one other question, Chairman. I know I've gone too long, but Clinch Riverside, there's been some discussion about, you know, our investment there, commitment there. Does TVA or whoever is going to be managing that, have they made a commitment to match those dollars and move forward? Or is that money also sitting like this might be in a fund waiting on them to commit dollars?
Yeah, so we were waiting on a federal decision to come out to provide the dollars. I think it was the original request was $800 million across 2 different projects. Those dollars were awarded, or at least the decision was made and will be awarded, but it was reduced quite a bit. And we are, as a state, we're just going to reduce our commitment that's commensurate with that amount as well. But it's still sitting there until certain things happen. I think we're just waiting on the execution of contracts per se, but we've got the dollars there ready when they execute.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Leader Lambert, you're recognized.
Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner. Always good to see you and your team. Y'all do a fantastic job, and we all appreciate you. You and I are both passionate about film incentives, bringing film, TV shows into Nashville and Middle Tennessee and really throughout the state. We've had some real big hits. I mean, they've had Nashville, the show itself, they had National 911, which is going on well now, Scarpetta, that's right after that, and a number of others. And I've been told by folks in your department in the past that for every dollar that we invest of the people's money in some of these incentives, the ROI on that is about 7 to 1 or greater. And it's hundreds of jobs that come in. So I've had a lot of conversations with y'all behind the scenes because I never want those incentives to be seen in any other way than just another ECD incentive that we should always measure against how much money is coming back into the people's pockets in Tennessee, and how many jobs are coming in here that are staying here. And we never want to be Atlanta. We're not trying to be a major motion picture hub, but these TV shows many times do tell a good story about our state. So with that in mind, obviously the Tennessee Entertainment Commission supports production incentive grants and film and music within the film and music industry and development of those. According to the report that came out in December, the commission has a fund balance of $8 million. Now, I know we've talked a little bit of that behind the scenes, but I want to publicly just ask about this. The commission also has a recurring base appropriation of another $8 million. And in the 27 proposed budget, the one we're debating now, there's a $20 million non-recurring fund that's being proposed. So if you can talk about the competitive landscape between us and other states, maybe some states that we compare ourselves to. It's obviously not Georgia. It's not California. I mean, but other states that we're compared to, and explain a little bit about why you still have $8 million there. There's $8 million recurring, and why the $20 million within kind of the paradigm of those other states that we're looking at and being compared to.
Sure. I'll just ask Bob Raines to speak to the numbers and some of the projects that we have. Bob is our executive director of the commission, but what I will just simply say is that we aren't going to be Atlanta and Georgia, and you can kind of see what's happening there. I think Tennessee has a very unique lane that we're in, and the creative community recognizes that we have something very special here. They want to come here. They want to film. They want to hire Tennesseans, the talent's here. But we have to remind ourselves what got us here and where we're going to go. So we've been very thoughtful with this particular request. We know it's a larger request than you've seen in the past. My goal when I came into this position was to try to build up enough recurring base and resources for Bob and his team to really be effective. We've had some great projects that we've been able to participate in. But with that, I recognize the request is significant, and that's why I have Bob sitting here at the table to answer some of those questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Representative. Yeah, on the competitive front, I think the state of Tennessee is in a very unique position. Just one. We have the workforce here. So we actually have a film, television workforce here, which is unique to other states. We also have an infrastructure that is here. In 2025, we had a little over $200 million in capital investment into our infrastructure, and that's actual hard infrastructure here. In 26 and 27, probably upwards of over $300 million in capital investment and additional infrastructure in the entertainment industry here in the state of Tennessee. So what that signals to us is that, we have a very competitive workforce. We have very competitive infrastructure here in the state. And so we do lead when it comes to actually having the resources here. Where we don't compete in the way the industry works is that we have to compete against Texas now. And as you said, Representative, we're not going after Georgia. Georgia has taken a completely different approach than what we're doing. They basically up in their marketplace versus what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to invest into the scaling of our marketplace here. Those are two different strategies. But Texas is doing the same thing we're doing, along with Oklahoma and now Kentucky and North Carolina. Texas is investing $300 million into their entertainment industry. Kentucky is now investing $75 million into their industry. Oklahoma, roughly 30, and then North Carolina, who else we compete with, around $30 million. And so when we have to get into these situations where we want a project that we feel is good for Tennessee because, when our grant program is not a first come, first serve, it's in the best interest of the state. So you can't just apply. We look at, what is the best interest of the state. But what we get into is that we have a lot of projects that are in the best interest of our state, that have people that live here in our state that are part of the project, that have companies that are developing intellectual property here in our state, talent that are here in our state. But then we get into a situation where they go to bordering states, because of the incentive. So, having these dollars just enable us to be able to be in those conversations and stay in those conversations for projects that we feel are best for our state long term.
And by the way, all that extremely good information, but kind of dealing with the granular of this, there's $8 million still sitting there. There's $8 million recurring, and there's a request for 20. Is the 8 that's just sitting there already, is that already dedicated? Is that the reason for the 20? Are there some larger projects? And I know you all never get into specifics when it comes to chasing economic development projects, and we're not asking you to do so. But is there a dedication of those funds already, and that's why there's a request for additional?
Yeah,
Or not?
For this fiscal year, like in our pipeline, I would say what we have remaining monies in our pipeline, we will go through that in this fiscal year, which will zero us out for July 1st. And then coming into July 1st, I do have several projects that are lining up because the way that we recruit about 6 to 8 months out. So we got to have the money so we can have the conversations with them to actually bring them in here. Our pipeline right now is looking pretty strong going into the next fiscal year, which is why we would like those dollars.
So then your goal for that $8 million and the remainder of the 25-6 budget is that you would expend those. The 20 million would go in with the additional 8 million recurring for next year. And by the time you're sitting here next year, you anticipate to have worked through the majority of that.
Yeah, that would be correct.
All right. Then the last question I have on this is that according to your questionnaire, there was a total of $10 million available for film and television incentive program grants, and up to 5% is retained for administrative cost for the grant program. Your response also indicated that no positions are funded with this retained funding. So how are these funds used for administering the grant if it's not for staff?
Do you want me to answer that? We basically use the staff that we have on hand to be able to administer those grant. Plus, we are with the Department of Economic and Community Development, of course, and we use a lot of the resources from ECD for contracting and other things. So that helps absorb a lot of our staff resources.
Well, on the questionnaire, it indicated that 5% was held back for administration. Then was that just an error and it's not held back, or I'm just going on based on the questionnaire?
5% of the appropriated amount is carved out just in case we need administrative elements for the administration of the fund. In this case, the Film Commission also utilizes computer resources, rent, any administrative cost, any indirect cost. And then there may have been a couple other elements that were administrative that were necessary, like third-party consultants and things like that.
If you'd like to, just go ahead and get us a breakdown on that, of how that 5% was allocated. And if it wasn't used for administrative cost and was just roped back into the amount that is expended out for incentives, that's fine too. It's just, it just kind of stands out when it says that there's 5% held back for something. And because of where you're housed, it was just something I wanted to kind of address a little bit more in detail. And thank you very much. I appreciate it. We certainly look forward to some additional good, wholesome entertainment that's coming out of the Film Commission and some of the projects are chasing. It is always fun to see, filming going on right here, sometimes even right outside of the building, and then to see that out there for kind of the world to see how wonderful the state is that we're in. They've filmed in parks and they've filmed in streets and they've kind of filmed all over the state, and it's neat to see that. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Hawk. Chairman Hawk, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't expect an answer to this, but is it true that Matt Damon is going to play Leader Lambert in the movie version of?
Yes.
Congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner and your team, thank you so much. We like all of you. We love Brooksy, but we like all of you. So we appreciate everything that Brooksy does for our communities. That's incredibly meaningful. Chairman Williams went down the road of broadband a little bit, but and to your point, when you started in this role with FNA, we were investing from the 2017-2018 year, we put in $30 million over a 3-year time frame and thought that was a lot.
Right.
Trying to get those last mile broadband communities served. And now we're putting $1 billion in this current budget toward it. Give me an idea of how we're able to quantify. Are we getting the return on our investments there? And have we done a study, or are we looking at a study to see exactly where we are in terms of served with the ups and downs of what we need to have? And I say that because, as you all well know, roads, bridges, water, sewer, electricity, broadband is that utility that we all have to lure those industries here. So
Sure. Well,
Thank you.
since you like Brooksy more than me, I'll ask her to answer the question.
I didn't say more. I said we love Brooksy. We like you, but we love Brooksy. So.
Thank you. Yes, we are so close to making the announcement that all Tennesseans will be served. We're doing that. The last $650 million that we have been able to invest has been federal money, which is great. We did, during this process from when we initially started the broadband program, the definition of broadband changed. So we were able to serve more people with better internet. So some of the people that were considered served when we started, we were actually able to serve them with the higher quality internet services. And with the American Rescue Plan funding, 500 million of that went to broadband, 450 of it went to infrastructure, and 50 million of it has been to expanding the use of broadband. We've provided training, workforce development, money to TCATs to expand fiber programs, digital skills training, and community facilities that utilize broadband. So those have been some really great programs that we've been able to make sure that those infrastructure investments are going to last. And the thing I'll say about the broadband infrastructure is that it is expected to last us for 50 years. The fiber that most of our projects that we've been investing in are fiber, and that's supposed to be enough to last for 50 years. So it won't be like a road that has to be repaved in 10 years or a sewer pipe that breaks in 30 years. It should be a really long-term investment for the state.
Thank you.
Chairman Hall.
And thank you. Just a quick follow-up. I learned in the time that you were talking, Brooksy, that the guy from Dumb and Dumber is actually playing Chairman Faison in the movie. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next on the list is Chairman Hale. Chairman Hale, you're recognized.
Hard to follow that one. Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner, great to see you and your team, and a shout out to the guy sitting back there, Braden. His accessibility to us is awesome and a great liaison. Just a couple of shout outs more than anything, and thank yous to your department. First of all, the news of the mine is huge for Smith County. 320 jobs, and to see the work that y'all put into that and the cooperative effort of that. And then lastly, seeing the grants and the money for the development districts, they are so vital to our communities, and to see the work that they're doing. And so the partnership of that, and to see the work that's being done with y'all and with our development districts has made a big difference in a lot of our rural communities. And so I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, let's go to Representative Sparks. Representative Sparks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Commissioner. Bob, I hope it's okay for me to talk about this. Bob and I had a conversation a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, about film incentives. The story of Japan and America coming together. I got to meet with, if I can pronounce his name right, Consul General, is it Watanabe?
Watanabe.
They called me about Trump tariffs. I have nothing to do with Trump tariffs, but it was a concern for them. But, I didn't realize the strong economic impact that Japan has with our state, and especially with my town of Smyrna, Tennessee, the first automotive plant, Datsun, Nissan. My little town was just a small little town, and Nissan really changed the lives of so many families, including my own. I used to work there. And The base at Smyrna, Seward Air Force Base, was a bombing training base. My mentor was at Pearl Harbor, Major Walls on the Omni-Hood. Had the opportunity to share this story with Marsha Blackburn when she was on my radio show a couple weeks ago, and Senator Haggerty. And but one thing I like about that story is the reconciliation of our country with Japan. And as a young boy working at the Omni-Hood at 13, because my neighbor owned it, Major Walls, I'd see the Japanese management, they would often come to Omni-Hood back when Nissan was getting started. Remember, this guy was at Pearl Harbor. He didn't harbor any animosity towards Japanese. He was a businessman. And, but a lot of people didn't want to forgive, if you know the story when Nissan first was coming to Smyrna. But I've also reached out to Tom Neff at MTSU. I think he started the documentary channel or something, Tom Neff did. Bob gave me some good direction. And I'll leave with this. The way I knew Bob, I didn't like the film Nashville. I didn't think we should have been funding it because it's called Nashville. Let Louisiana film it. Let Georgia film it. We still get the free PR at someone else's dime. I thought it was wise, but I plan on meeting with you next couple of weeks. That was my next step after I went through the line. Marsha liked the idea. I didn't realize that Marsha used to be the film commissioner years ago.
she
Didn't
was.
know that. But thank you for the great job that y'all do.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Representative Miller, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. I want to talk about the $20 million as well, Entertainment Commission grants, which I certainly support. I'm on your website, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission production projects, which the grants will come under these projects. Is that correct?
Correct.
And when we were having the conversations, I think Mr. Bob talked about what other states were doing. And he mentioned one state investing $300 million and then another 75. And I thought that was a big stretch. So the question in my mind was, really, are we putting in not enough or too much? Mm-hmm. And it led me to the website, and I'm looking at 2025, and it has incentivized, non-incentivized. And in 2020, it talks about Tennessee workers hired by TEC, the assisted production projects. In 2020, the incentivized were 3,728, non-incentivized 3,172. But in 2025, the incentivized 1,167, non-incentivized 1,954. And based on the chart, it seems as if we are not gaining ground. And another example was the Tennessee Production Days for TEC assisted productions. In 2020, 3,477. 2025, 985. And I was trying to figure out, wanted it to make sense, especially we're talking about an additional $20 million. Are we doing not enough, or we just throwing good money after a bad situation? I'm trying to understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm confident we're not throwing money at bad projects or bad situations. I'll let Bob answer. You may have more detail to that specifically, to the numbers.
To be honest, I would have to see what numbers that you're looking at, depending how you're looking at them, so I can see what we're comparing to. But what I would say, I mean, what we're trying to invest in is we're trying to invest in the scale of our market. You see other states that are putting 375 million, 300 million, 75 million in it. What we're looking at is the job growth, right? We've seen about 126% job growth in film and television over the last 10 years here, 95% job growth in music here. And like I was stating before, we've seen infrastructure investment in our state of last year around 200 million, 300 million moving forward. And so I think this is again signaling to us that we are seeing growth in the marketplace, but we're wanting to invest the dollars, right, to then be in scope with the actual growth that we're seeing. So we're not wanting to over invest into something, but try to invest in what is actually happening currently.
Mr. Chairman, I would say this, and I certainly support the commission, and we should do as much as we can. But what I quoted was from your website, okay? So the numbers from your website. So either that website needs to be changed, or the presentation you're making now versus what's on the website that match, in a sense.
We'll have to, I can look
You're
into
right.
that.
You need to look at that. And I thought about it before I even asked the question, that you haven't had an opportunity to actually see what I'm looking at or what I'm reading. But I thank you for that.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Continued support.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Representative Shaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank y'all for being here, and I don't have to tell you again, but thank you for all the work that you've been doing in West Tennessee. I did want to ask just for my information, because I'm not really sure. I know we had some storm damage back earlier, and I think quite a bit of damage was done to the broadband in that area. And I wondered if there were some extra dollars that they could apply for to help restore that, or maybe it has already been done. I don't know. I'm not up to date. And Brooksy, I do like you better than I do the commissioner. I'll admit that. Can you tell me anything about that?
I have not
started
heard of
something.
any lingering broadband outages from the storm, but I can check and follow up and see if there is anything that is still outstanding. I know we're still waiting on some designations from the federal government on the disaster declarations. So hopefully those could help if there are some still lingering outages.
Representative Shaw?
Thank you. I assume the utilities would know if it was, probably anyway.
Oh, yes, sir.
I'm
sure
just
they would
kind of
call.
asking, just kind of asking for more information. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Leader Camper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you, Commissioner.
See you.
Always good to put eyes on you. Thank you. I missed part of the presentation coming down. I caught some of it upstairs, but I do want to talk a little bit about the Entertainment Commission grants. I remember a time when we were talking about trying to build an infrastructure for film, TV development in the state of Tennessee. And that a lot of the movies and television programs that were being created was being created somewhere else because of the incentives in these other states. And the community is more like, why are they telling our story in their state when we can do it here?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Nashville, the series, gave us an opportunity to build this infrastructure so that when the incentive comes, you'll have a pipeline of people that can do the job versus people coming in from somewhere else to actually do the job. So people in Tennessee was building the infrastructure so that when we do land a production, we have people here that can benefit from it, from the incentives that we're giving them. And also with the incentives, as Mr. Rain, I'm sure said, I wasn't here, but I'm sure you probably said it. That's this other economic activity that happens as a result of it.
Yes.
So you bring the people here and you're doing a production, there is this exponential amount of economic development and that's coming up alongside of that small little investment. So I appreciate the investment. I don't think 20 million is enough. And I think it has a huge impact locally. I remember in Mr. Sparks always have a great example of something. So I'm gonna tell my little example. We have an organization in Memphis who, what they do is they help independent musicians get their music in these productions. So it's called a Memphis Music Bank. And so they get a chance to pitch these local artists who was maybe a score or maybe talking to the music, supervisor, getting sync license to be in these films.
Mhm.
It was you that helped this little small organization be able to help several local artists get their music before these music supervisors, to get their score before these people that's developing a movie or TV film production here in the state of Tennessee. So I am grateful. It may have been a small amount of money, but it went a long way. And a lot of local organizations, independent artists. At the time, Representative, we was wanting to make Tennessee the independent artist of the world, the capital, that's it, independent capital of the world. So it has had a huge impact, a rippling impact. It's small amount of money, but it's done a great amount of work. So if we could increase it, I'll be about doubling it from 20, is that what it is? To
Yes.
40. So that more people here can benefit. You raised me 20. I want to appreciate, thank you, Commissioner, for that. Thank you, Mr. Raines. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. You've come in the community. Anytime I've asked you to come and sit on a panel and do anything to educate people on what the state offers to them in this world. And you've been good about that. And they've learned so much to better position their business to be able to take advantage and position themselves to even draw down some of these incentives. Now, one of the things that, and I don't know if this is the case, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your patience. There was a time when the incentives were such that the business, the production company, whichever one, was applying, had like a minimum bar that they had to reach in terms of their expenses before they can even access the money. And I was wanting to lower that bar a little bit to give more people access. And we were doing our incentives a little different than some of the other states. So could you kind of update me on how the incentives work now? Maybe more people are trying to get access. Maybe it may not have been lowered. I understand there's reasoning behind that.
Yeah, so,
Mr. Chairman, he got to turn it on.
okay, there we go. I'm on. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Right now, we have a minimum spend of $500,000, and that's Tennessee spend, so they have to spend $500,000 to qualify. So once they've met the qualification of $500,000, once they've showcased their finances and their team, and we look at the content side of what it is, we take it through a grants committee, which is the ECD grants committee, who ultimately reviews it and we approve it. And then from there, the productions go and they will make their movie. And then on the back end of it, then we rebate against their spend. So the state always has last dollar in on the program, which it helps us be able to go through making sure we're auditing expenses that are actually done here in the state. Our program is extremely straightforward compared to other states. I will say that because it is a grant program, and it is very straightforward compared to credit states. A lot of independent productions are able to utilize it a little easier and able to realize the value from it.
You're recognized, leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for that. I think it's good for people to know and understand, what goes into all this. So I appreciate it, all the work you've been doing. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you and what you've done for this state.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Members, I have no one else on the list. Commissioner, thank you for being here. Thank you all for your
Thanks for having us.
presentation, for answering
Appreciate
our
it.
questions.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next on our calendar will be the Department of Education, and I see Commissioner Reynolds back there. So if she and her team will move to the table. Commissioner, good afternoon. Thank you for being here, you and your team. And just a reminder, we'll control the microphones up here. So once you see that red light come on, you'll be good to go. If you will begin just by introducing yourself and who you have with you today. And again, thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. No, it is not morning. Good afternoon. Lizette Reynolds, Commissioner of Education. With me are Sam Piercy, Deputy Commissioner, Christy Brown, Chief Academic Officer, Jonathan Criswell, Chief Program Officer, and Marianne Dursky, Chief Finance Officer. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. First, I want to reshare our then and now state highlight slide from this past fall, rooting our budget conversation in the achievements of those investments over the last 7 years. As you can see, these numbers are the result of your historic investment in our public schools, resulting in a tremendous commitment by you, the General Assembly, and Governor Bill Lee in keeping our students and our families at the forefront of our state's future success. Thanks to your commitment to our students and to our educators, starting teacher pay has jumped 30%, per pupil spending has increased 36%, and recurring state funding has grown 44%. And these are with dollars targeted at ensuring that students have the opportunities and resources they need to be academically successful. Tennessee students are steadily and consistently meeting high expectations. Within the last 7 years, Tennessee students have moved to the top 25 tier states in the nation in both grade 8 and grade 4 reading and math. Our TCAP results continue to show progress with ELA proficiency in grades 3 through 8 up 5.2% and math proficiency up 1.4%. Which is significant given that in many states, their state math scores have either flat or are in decline. Aligned with innovative, honestly, back to basics policy and legislation, it should not come as a surprise that Tennessee continues to challenge the status quo when it comes to student achievement. Anchored in your investments, next slide. Anchored in your investments, Tennessee public schools are not standing still. Rather, they are innovating and using those additional resources to make schools better for all of our kids. With over $2 billion in state recurring dollars to the state's funding formula, including $578 million for educator salary increases, over $150 million to support school choice, and over $100 million to support specific academic, career, and military readiness initiatives, education and education to workforce pathways are better supported, fueling the next generation of capable leaders to lead Tennessee to its next iteration of a vibrant economy state. And with funding of over $100 million in school safety initiatives to protect our students and our teachers, schools can focus on their most important responsibilities, teaching and learning. But the most important theme of your investments is this: 98.7% of all the funds appropriated go straight to the communities that you serve. So in building upon the strong foundation of direct investment and measurable results, I'm pleased to walk you through the department's budget request. Slide 4. Our cost increases this year fall into 3 categories: maintaining what the General Assembly has already prioritized, supporting student access and infrastructure, and making sure the department can operate efficiently in a growing system. Here you will see 2 lines in the governor's budget related to the ongoing growth and expansion of the Education Freedom Scholarship Program. First, we are aligning funding with both the growth in seats and the updated TISA base. This ensures both the existing scholarships and the 20,000 new seats, which is 5,000 trigger seats and 15,000 new seats, are funded at the proposed formula level in the next year. The TISA adjustment simply reflects the updated base amount of $7,530 under the formula and maintains the state's commitment to fully fund that formula. This includes the minimum teacher salary increase and an economically disadvantaged hold harmless provision of 100%. Summer learning and transportation. We are continuing to request funding for summer learning supports and transportation for districts. This additional $5 million in combination with existing reserve funds will allow for continued support to school districts to serve those students most in need of academic support. Paid parental leave. This reflects the implementation costs of the parental leave policy previously supported by the General Assembly. Charter Schools Facilities Fund. This request continues to meet the needs of our public charter schools. Public Charter School Commission. This reflects the state portion operating the commission as its workload increases. And I will defer to Director Tess Stovall to answer any questions you may have around that. School Turnaround Program. We are shifting this to a phased funding structure to ensure accountability and sustainability over the full intervention timeline. The funds reflect our ability to fund multiple cohorts of the School Turnaround Program in the next school year. IT operational funding. As the department modernizes systems for data, grants, and reporting, this covers operational capacity for those platforms and ensures better support to all of our school districts. And finally, artificial intelligence training. Finally, this small investment is intended to establish a competitive grant program for training in the responsible use of artificial intelligence tools that are rapidly emerging across in our classrooms today. Next slide. These next few items are smaller, targeted investments that directly connect to student opportunity and educator competitiveness across the state. Next slide. Supplemental requests for the current year. These supplemental requests are timing adjustments for paid parental leave and grade A schools, initiatives the General Assembly has already approved and supported. And slide 7 is our reductions. These reductions are the result of routine cleanup, program attrition, and operational efficiencies. No district funding or student services have been reduced. Members, our goal has always been simple: to leave Tennessee's education system better than how we found it, and to build a way of continuing the work long before any one of us is here to do it. This progress did not happen by accident. It reflects a sustained focus on strong academics, meaningful educator support, and a clearer definition of what student readiness looks like as we prepare our young people for the pathways ahead of them. At the same time, we have worked intentionally to build an agency that operates more efficiently as a small government, pushing dollars directly out of our Nashville office and into classrooms and districts across this state, empowering districts, families, and local communities to make the decisions that best serve the needs of their students. As I've stated to anyone that will listen to me, this is the Tennessee way, where Tennessee governors and countless members of this General Assembly have stayed focused on ensuring opportunities are there for future generations of their students, where the focus on academics and student success is front and center, where the strength of the educator pipeline remains a priority, and where we have a state government that exists to support local communities first and foremost. Thank you again for your partnership with all our school districts across the state, and know that we are here and happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner, for your presentation. I'll kick us off with the line of questioning, and we do have quite an extended list of folks wanting to jump in and ask a couple questions. So I want to begin with the summer learning camps
Yes,
and and transportation that is also included in that. So the base budget is 74 million recurring, and that comes from state funding, 17 million recurring from lottery for educational after school programs. Let me ask first, are those dollars still coming from the lottery for that? So those?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So again, 10 million recurring from state funding for transportation. So if you look at the annual reports from the Learning Loss Remediation Act, it actually shows that enrollments across the state are actually down.
Yes,
So
sir.
the numbers that I have are 102,270 down to 89,285. If that's the case, why are we asking, I guess, for 5 million recurring for the summer learning camps and transportation?
So, yes, so that tops off the dollars. You are right. We are down to around not 89,000 students, but remember, this is across all grade bands, rising K through 9, across 147 districts. So one of the things that we are looking at is creating some flexibility around the summer learning program so that districts can decide I think what they've realized is that they need multiple strategies to ensure that they can successfully remediate and accelerate their students. And so this program was really intended to really help on that remediation phase. So as students have acquired proficiency and parents have been utilizing these summer programs, they are now, it is diminishing in the number of students that are coming. Now, so what we're asking for in this flexibility piece is to allow school districts to think about how they serve their kids in the summer. So really targeted, thinking about more targeting specific kids that probably need remediation, but then also using those dollars, any leftover dollars, to support tutoring during the school year or even during the summer, or for whatever it is that they think they need best to best serve their kids. So these dollars will create more flexibility. They're not necessarily, again, we're going to lean on our school districts they know their kids, they know which kids need what supports. And so we're going to be working as well to ensure that the flexibility exists so that all the dollars can be utilized in a way that's going to support student achievement across the state.
I like that. I really do. I guess my question is, how will LEAs know that they can utilize some of the money for summer learning camps for during school tutoring and things like that? How will they know that?
Yeah, so we are working on language in the appropriations bill. Let me let Sam to answer that question.
Yes, sir. That is, there's going to be proposed language in the appropriations bill to help streamline the grant opportunities. That's another request we've heard from districts over time. And then the administration's cleanup bill, there is also that proposed flexibility. So that decision point will come before this body.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Okay, let's go to the next person on the list. It's going to be Chairman Baum. You're recognized, sir. Down the front.
Thank you, Chairman Hicks. My first question or set of questions has to do with unspent TISA funds. My understanding is that when we have unspent funds, they can be rolled into funding for bonus outcomes.
Yes, sir.
The last couple of years, we've had unspent TISA funds. Has that amount of money all rolled into bonus outcomes?
It's all in that pot of money. Yes, sir.
And just out of curiosity, why would we have unspent TISA funds?
Thank you. There's a couple of reasons for unspent dollars in the TISA allocations. One comes from there are certain support funding provisions that districts may or may not qualify for in a given year. For example, there's an at-risk distressed grant pot of funds that is involved in it if maintenance of effort increases are triggered, things like that. And frankly, we have to estimate the TISA amount before the end of the school year. So we are at 5 of our 9 reporting periods when we're coming up with the TISA budget. So we leave a little room for updated numbers as the school year plays out, and that can contribute to some of that overage each year.
Okay. And my last question has to do with the cost of the Freedom accounts. I guess I have a question designed to get at whether they really cost as much as we think they do. Let's say that we awarded $20,000 and the amount is $7,500 per student, which is roughly correct. $20,000 times $7,500 would be about $150 million. But that assumes that we're paying for these $20,000 Freedom accounts and still giving the school districts the same amount of money that they got the prior year. And that's because in the law, there's a provision that says we're going to hold these school districts harmless financially. Now let's consider a county, hypothetically, it can be Rutherford County. Let's say 100 students in Rutherford County take one of these Freedom accounts. And let's also assume the county doesn't grow at all. Then those 100 Freedom accounts are costing $7,500 each because the students are getting that money and the county's budget's being held harmless. The county didn't grow. And so the full cost of the Freedom accounts is really the $7,500 per student because the county's getting the same amount of money as they did the prior year. There, the cost is the $150 million if that were to occur in all the counties. But there's an alternative, and that is, what if a county like Rutherford County were to grow by 100 students in my hypothetical example, so that you've got 100 students who take the Freedom accounts, and they each get $7,500, and the county grows by 100 students, you could actually keep that county's education funding, its TISA funding, at the same as it was last year. They would be held harmless financially, and it wouldn't cost the state anything for these freedom accounts, because the 100 freedom accounts are essentially replaced by the 100 students in growth for the county in this second scenario. In that kind of a second scenario, wouldn't the freedom accounts really cost the state no additional money?
So that is quite a question, and I will do my best to answer it. So my understanding is, so the freedom accounts are separate from TISA, and TISA is specifically for public schools. So there's not a real exchange per se. And so I am going to ask Mary Ann to help me out here.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, the funding for the Education Freedom Scholarships is an entirely separate pot of money. And so that money is allocated and awarded to the students who apply for and qualify for the scholarships. The TISA funding is generated by the students who, your prior year students in your district and their characteristics. So if Rutherford County were to continue to grow, they would generate additional dollars for Rutherford County schools. The education freedom pot remains separate, and those funds would still go to the students who were enrolled in the EFS program.
Okay, I guess that answers my question. I guess I still feel like, though, if 100 students take the freedom account and the county grows by 100 students, that you could hold the county's funding essentially where it was the prior year, because it's grown by 100 students, but then 100 students left and took a freedom account. And so the county's budget through TISA didn't change.
Right. Correct.
It seems
Yes,
like
sir.
under that scenario, the freedom accounts wouldn't cost any additional money once you take into account the fact that the county grew by 100 students in this scenario. If the 100 students hadn't taken the freedom account, it would have cost the state the exact same amount if they'd stayed in the school system.
I mean, the difference, though, also is the fact that the students in Rutherford County are going to generate more than just the base amount. So the base amount is all that's covered within the scholarship, but the students each generate different dollars, different amounts. So that in of itself is going to be 75-30 plus whatever those additional, whether it's a weight allotment, characteristic, or whatever. So then they cost a little bit more than they do in the EFS program.
Okay, last comment. So I understand the weights may be a little
Okay,
different. Maybe
yeah.
it's a weight of 1.2 instead of a weight of 1 when they take the freedom account. So that may mean that a student taking the freedom account doesn't cancel out with student growth. It may not be a complete offset, but still, you could hold county budgets harmless. And I think the freedom accounts wouldn't really cost anything if they're offset by growth. But anyway, we can talk
Okay.
about it later.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Baum. Next on the list, Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Commissioner and staff, for being here. Ms. Dursky, I had a question about a follow-up from what Chairman Baum was saying. The one scenario that he did not utilize as an example is one very similar to Putnam County. Irregardless of what's going on with Freedom Scholarships, as certain communities begin to age and the number of students is reduced over time, with that reduction in the number of students and with a floor set, over a period of time, what ends up happening is, out of natural attrition of that aging community, what ends up being is that because there's no reset in the statute, there's no reset as it relates to population, what ends up happening is communities could end up getting more than $7,400 a student because they have fewer students, but there's a floor in the overall funding. And when we look at the efficiency of TISA going forward, it's going to be askew in some LEAs because it's going to look like that in Putnam County, you get $8,100 a student because the number of students has gone down, but the TISA formulary floor allowed them to get more. My question is do you expect over the years that the legislature is going to have to look at that, particularly in these areas, and reevaluate or reset the total enrollment or rear ends in the seat, if you will, in our school systems to make sure that we're not providing overfunding for that base formulary, regardless of the weights and measures, overfunding in the areas and therefore creating revenue there where by his example, you have growth where that money could be offset over time.
I mean, yes, I think it's something that y'all will be looking at, every budget season. So, that's why the law says that it's all subject to, y'all's decision around the appropriation. So, I think it is an exercise that is wise to do every single year.
Yeah, I think it's one of the challenges associated with it, particularly because we have segregated the Freedom Scholarships from the remaining amount. I'm just concerned that over time that we're inadvertently picking winners and losers in LEAs based upon the base funding not being reset over time. And so it's my hope that we would have this discussion sooner rather than later so that we could true up the numbers so that the spend is equal across the states for base funding. I did have another question regarding the scholarships. Of course, in your base budget this year, you have two pots for Education Freedom Scholarship. One is for the natural growth which was carried in the bill last year, which is about $40 million. You got another $115 million for the governor's proposal to add another 15,000 scholarships. Has anyone looked, or have you guys looked at what the capacity is for growth in the private schools themselves? I mean, even if we gave a scholarship, if there's not a seat for them in the school.
Correct. But that's an issue that they're dealing with. I mean, that we're going to deal with year to year. Families are going to be dealing with looking for those seats every time they apply for these scholarships. So have we looked at the one-to-one, whether, we have 15,000 seats out there? Again, it just depends because we have applications from all over our state, I think. So I maybe I'm not answering.
Maybe you're misunderstanding,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner, what my question is.
Okay.
My question is there only a certain number of seats in private schools in Tennessee today? Period. If there are no empty seats and we add 5,000 or 15,000 additional Freedom Scholarships, where are those kids going to go? If we don't know what the vacancy rate is at the hotel, we don't know how many rooms to sell every night. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Have we looked at the numbers to see where there's room at the end?
I have not. I just wanted to look back real quick. Have we not? No, sir. We have not looked at the capacity of our current private school providers and whether or not they would match any available seats that are allocated by this program.
Yeah, that's one of the concerns I have because somebody's going to have to make a capital improvement at a school in order to create a new kindergarten class if they want to do that. And so as we look at providing these scholarships, if in Putnam County there's no room at the end, we shouldn't be issuing new scholarships to people who can't utilize those scholarships in those communities. And so being able to know what that is, I think is really important before we grow. And then this promise of a Freedom Scholarship won't be there for that person, even though they may get accepted into the program. I did want to ask, were there any students who qualified for a scholarship under the same premise? Were there any children who qualified and were awarded a scholarship who were not able to use that scholarship, and how many were there?
Can I ask Trudy, please, to come up?
Yes, Chairman. Is it okay for Trudy?
That is fine.
I said yes, like I had the authority to ask.
The kid has a seat. The kid doesn't have a seat, but yeah. It's okay.
Thank you for coming up. If you would, just introduce yourself.
Thank you and good afternoon. My name is Trudy Hughes and I serve as Assistant Commissioner. And regarding the question, if there were any scholarships awarded that were not used, meaning the student was not able to use them, whether it be they couldn't find, like you stated, room in the inn, we did not have those situations that we're aware of. Everyone that was awarded, either they chose not to use it simply because maybe they chose to go back to the public school, but we didn't have any instances that were communicated to the department stating that we're not able to get into that school. Now, there were instances where maybe the school chose not to participate, meaning they were not an EFS registered school, and we did have those situations. But as far as not having room for the students that had actually applied to an EFS registered school, we did not hear any of that from our current recipients.
Okay. So in the instance that you described where someone was awarded one, or does that family notify your department and say, I can't use this scholarship here, and then you repurpose the scholarship? Or is it too late to repurpose and maybe add, if there's a waiting list, add to the waiting list of those people that were qualified?
Right. Well, we did have a waiting list for 25, 26. So anyone that was not able to use that scholarship, and with the scholarships, there are also deadlines to get enrolled in a school to be accepted into that school out of respect for the wait list. So we were able to take those scholarships that weren't used for the reasons the family chose not to, and we were able to award those to people on the wait list.
Okay. Final question, Chairman. Last year, as a part of this, the legislature allowed for 11 new positions at the Department of Education for the purposes of implementing the Education Freedom Scholarships. Were we able to fill all those positions? Are there any vacancies in both the natural growth and in the proposed growth of the additional 15,000? Are there any other positions that you think would be necessary in order to do it?
No, we do not need any additional positions.
Did you fill the number of positions that you had previously of the 11 positions?
Yep. I'm going to have.
Okay. Yes, well, of the 11 positions, we have 4 vacancies, but 2 of those vacancies are currently posted to be filled. So once we fill the 2 that are posted, we'll only have 2 vacancies regarding the 11 positions that we were awarded in 25, 26.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Boyd. Chairman Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, it's great to see you all today. Appreciate you coming in. My question is regarding a topic I dread to hear in my district, and that's that dreaded third grade retention that we've all had to contend with. And so my question is about the conference pathways on it. So according to the most recent promotions pathway overview, 10,791 students were promoted to 4th grade with required adequate growth. In order to be promoted to 5th grade, though, these students must demonstrate proficiency or adequate growth on the 4th grade ELA TCAP, or promoted by a conference pathway. Roughly 3,850 students demonstrated proficiency or adequate growth. Roughly 6,000 were promoted by a conference pathway. So if a student is promoted by conference pathway, are they ever required to show proficiency or adequate growth in the future years? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Yes or no, right? Huh? No, there is not. Okay.
Okay.
sorry.
So if they're promoted by conference pathway, will they receive tutoring in the 5th grade if they've not shown proficiency? If they go through the conference pathway?
Yes.
They will be tutored in 5th grade?
Yes,
Will they be-
that was, I believe, a legislation that was passed last session, last session.
the same tutors that they used in 4th grade, or
I think it just depends on the campus itself.
can the department identify and track student outcomes for those students that are promoted by conference pathway?
I think so. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Next on the list will be Chairman Gillespie. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Commissioner, thank you and team for being here. So last year, I think it was last year, the General Assembly passed what's now Public Chapter 103 that required a cell phone policy to be put in place in the public schools in the states. Can you give us just a description of the range of the policies that you know of that have been adopted so far? You don't have to go into like best case, worst case, things like that, just kind of the range. And then also, I've got a follow up after that.
Sure. Well, as far as we know, all districts have adopted a policy. Again, the implementation varies across the state. I've heard about some really strong implementation in Clarksville, Montgomery under Director Jean Luna, as well as in Hamlin County under Arnie Bunch. So part of it is the way they connect with families and with the students. And then I think where they have been successful is that they're having the conversations earlier before they actually, cut off the phones. And then, in that implementation stage, how it moves forward. Do I have a general landscape analysis of whether or not, one district did better than the other? I do not.
Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized.
Thank you. Okay, so that's helpful, and that leads into my next question. I'm a big fan of the implementation or policy of getting rid of cell phones. My fiance is a college counselor here in Tennessee, and she's seen noticeable effects, not just on the K through 12, but also on those young adults that are starting to transition into college and what that all means for them. I guess my question leading into that would be, as we see the more and more benefits, do we see school districts requesting funds for technology implementation, the little boxes to lock up phones, et cetera? And if so, do y'all have any comment on that?
Sure. I have not, but I do agree with you. We have participated. We're actually asking something on our teacher survey to continue to gather data from teachers about the effects of their district cell phone policy. So I'm real excited to see how that turns out. But I was at a presentation last fall, and I remember the presenter was talking about how the best sound that teachers were hearing is the noise in the cafeteria. Because before it was just silence, right? Because everybody was on their phones. Now there's conversations happening. Again, it's developing social skills across the continuum. And personally, I think it's going to attribute to some great progress for students in so many ways, given some of the other challenges that we've been talking about as a system when it comes to students being able to have that social life and be able to communicate in best ways.
Agreed. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Hicks. Chairman Hicks of Washington, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here and your team. According to the data, there was a 43% drop in teacher vacancies between 2023-24 and 2024 and 25 school years. Does the department have figures for the fall of 2025 to see if it's continuing to drop? And what do you attribute these decreases in teacher vacancies to? What do you
Sure.
attribute? Yeah.
So yes, sir. My understanding is that it went from 1,400 to 800. And I think, which is about 1%. So part of that, I believe, is the school districts are really looking internally. Many school districts have their own, some school districts have their own apprenticeship programs. They're also looking at various other pathways and pipelines that we are providing, which includes some additional endorsements to get more teachers certified in the classroom. So Christy Brown has some more data that she can share as well.
Sure. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for the question. So when we collect that data at certain times during the year, and I'm happy to follow up with you when we have that, when we have collected it and have the report for you. But we are down to about 817, I think, vacancies last year across all school districts that were reported. And most of those seem to be in hard to fill areas like high school math, special education, and some of those. So we are working with districts in different licensure pathways. The flexibilities that have been offered in addition to programs like apprenticeships and additional endorsements to get a qualified teacher in front of every kid in Tennessee. So happy to get that when we have that information available for you for this current school year.
Chairman Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's good to know. I mean, we passed some good legislation last year to really help teachers and get them on a new pathway. So I'm glad that that's working. It sounds great. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Next on the list, Deputy Speaker Zachary, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner team, a quick question related to COVID funding. The budget document shows a $35 million reduction in COVID funding. What programs specifically are impacted by that, and what is the plan for those programs moving forward?
So generally, school districts across the state did a really good job with their federal relief funding. So I think I can't name any specific programs, but they've made the choices that they made were really intentional in ensuring that they didn't have something that they were going to have to fund later on. So there were a lot of one-time investments, is my understanding. They didn't hire a lot of people. That was, I've talked to other states, and a lot of states did those sorts of things. They hired a bunch of people. Now they're having to get rid of a bunch of people. So our school districts were really intentional and really thinking through what those investments needed to be, knowing that they were going to end at some point.
Was there a specific allocation or a specific designation for those $35 million? What were they? I understand they were pushed out of the school system, but what were those $35 million used for?
Thank you. Yeah, the majority of those funds are funds that were, as you said, allocated to different school districts, and they are in the process of drawing down their final the final amounts that they are owed from as they wrap up their projects. This will all come to an end next month. Most of the, I think most of the money was spent, as the commissioner said, on one-time projects. There was a lot of investment in facilities, building out classrooms or spaces for certain programs that are high needs or high cost programs. There was some a lot of HVAC work done, some remedial maintenance work to contribute to air quality and a better learning environment. But that $35 million is really scattered across all 150 of our districts.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Representative Shaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner, and your team for being here. And thank you all for stopping the other day. And as I told you, I would check with my districts to see if they had any. Didn't get around to everybody, but the ones I talked to, their concerns were about accountability and time periods in terms of PE and all of that with the kids in a day's schedule, getting all of that into one day's work. Can you talk a little bit about that? How maybe they can schedule themselves to do that within a day's work? If that's a fair question.
Yes, sir, it is a fair question. And again, it is a consistent conversation with our directors of schools, really trying to fit in. It's not about accountability as much as there's so much that needs to be done. And a lot of requirements, right, that come out of come out of you guys as well. So we work with them. Christy Brown oversees a group of core consultants that work in school districts every day that are there to support districts and their campuses and really, deciding how to do sorts of things like scheduling. I'm happy I have two former superintendents on my team. If one of them wants to continue the conversation, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you for that question. And it is a challenge sometimes to fit in all the requirements and the things that that serve students the best in school districts. And it really comes down to the local planning, and it looks different across all school districts depending on what type of schedule they have and the staffing models that they use. And that's something that we're working on, is maybe some innovative staffing models that could help with that. But also, we do have some guidance on how to different schedules of how to fit in, the student supports in addition to ELA and math requirements, and with interventions, tutoring, PE requirements, things like that. So we have some examples across different districts, and that they can kind of see which ones are similar to them and work with them on best practices there. And I'd be happy to work with your districts on that as well.
Okay.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to ask you, so will they be held accountable if, say, if they don't get it right one day or 1 week, are they going to be held accountable, or will they have time to, as you say, work with them to get it all done? How will it work? Are they going to be penalized? In other words, if they don't get it in that day, are they going to be penalized?
Thank you for that. There are several, circumstances that may contribute to it not being done in a day's time or across a few days. I will say some of this inclement weather that we've had is a good example when they come in late, for those school days, things like that. But what we want is an overall consistency with that, and of course, supporting districts to make sure that that's the case. That overall that they're able to work their schedules to get all the requirements in that students need and that they're required to offer.
So it would be safe for me to just say to my directors to call the office.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. The next on the list, Representative Gant, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner, thank you for you and your team to be here. Remind me, when was TISA implemented? What year was that?
2023. 2023, 2024.
Okay. And how many school districts across the state have received reduced funding on an annual basis since we passed that?
Sam.
So in general, overall, no one received reduced funding. The only group that I would call out is that we had the BEP transition hold harmless provision. And I think at this point in time, maybe 4 districts are still on that provision. And so those were districts that in the transition from BEP to TISA were slated to generate less funds than the final year of the BEP. That list started a little bit higher. A few more districts were on that, but they've gradually kicked off and are generating their standard TISA allocations.
Okay, is Fayette County School District on that?
It's on the,
I would have to double check that one for you, sir, but I'm happy to do that.
I think it's in the TISA.
Well, I can answer it for you. It is.
Okay.
But I guess my question is, ever since we implemented this TISA funding formula, Fayette County has received reduced funding year after year. And of course, there are some external issues that I guess direct us in that direction, the desegregation lawsuit, several things. And I have reached out to you guys every year asking for help with this. And we've met. You guys have been diligent about meeting and discussing it. But sooner or later, time has got to come to a position to where we're actually doing something to address it. And my school district has a lot of hardworking people that are duly elected. And the way we have our education system structured in this state is the local LEAs are very dependent upon the state. I would like to see more power go back to the local LEAs, but that's not the case at this point. So I guess I'm asking is, how do I address a school district that is consistently has received reduced funding year after year since TISA was passed? And you were sitting in my shoes as a representative of that school district. What would you do?
Honestly, sir, there are a lot of unique circumstances going on in Fayette County, as we have discussed. And I want you to know that we have done outreach to the U.S. Department of Ed regarding some of those legal issues at hand and tried to push on that as well. The other thing that I'll note for you is that the 26-27 school year is the first year of the funding floor provision. So that will also change that trajectory. If Fayette County was still on the BEP transition trajectory, they would likely shift over to that funding floor piece. But as always, sir, happy to continue the conversation, help support in any way we can.
Okay, so there's not anything I can hang my hat on in this conversation or in this budget year that's going to correct that problem. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next on the list, Representative Capley. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we could go back to slide 2, please. I don't know who's in charge of that. Me too. Yeah. 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 There we go. All
Members,
right.
members, you
That is
better
awesome.
hurry.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right. So let's look at this here. We've got starter educator salary up significantly. We've got average educator salary, solid increase. We've got per pupil funding, significant increase. Local education spending, significant increase. State education funding, significant increase. $2.3 billion in recurring state funds, over 1.2 in one-time state investments. All of this money, right, that we can see. You know, I hear all the time, oh, you're not funding schools. Oh, you're not paying teachers. Oh, you're not doing this. Oh, you're not doing that. We spent, you didn't hear me say million one time, billions of dollars that we're spending on an increase from 2020 to 2026, and our math scores went up 1.5 points. I heard you say, you know, other states are stagnant or they've decreased. I guess my question is, it doesn't look like funding is an issue. What is the disconnect right now? Is it something legislatively that we can fix? Have we got our teachers restricted? Is it the way the teachers are being taught? I don't, what do you think is going on?
So I would say at a baseline, Tennessee already was kind of on the higher end of math performance. So even before anything has really happened, Tennessee always was at, better than other states.
Okay.
So it didn't necessarily have a lot to grow, but obviously we still need more growth, right? There was a Math Supports Act that was passed that y'all supported and passed last legislative session, which we established a landscape analysis. We have a math implementation network. We're going to be offering some free professional development over the summer. So it is ongoing support system that Chief Academic Officer Brown is working on. But honestly, I mean, and I'm not trying to be biased, but that was kind of one of those issues that when I looked at it, when I came here, I was like, wow, Tennessee's actually doing really well in math performance. So obviously we can always do better. And so part of that is really looking at, again, thinking about getting back to basics. How's the best way to teach students how to do math? Really kind of ensuring that our teachers understand that math facts are just as important as contextual type things, right? So really her team is leading a great cohort of modules and professional development that we are going to be offering to all our teachers this summer and will continue to.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you. Next on the list, Representative Parkinson. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for everything that you do. I'm actually not the big bad wolf, but I know I've been branded as that. Okay, I am. Okay. I guess I'm about to growl a little bit because in looking at just kind of pigtailing on my colleagues' comments in regards to funding and outcomes. Even with the funding, we're still what are we ranked 47th in the country? Is this wrong? Am I on the wrong? Looking at the wrong thing down here in the bottom right corner?
Oh, I think that's a spending thing.
Right, per pupil expenditures.
Right.
Right.
We're talking about actual achievement outcomes. So let me go to that. I know I have that right here.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that?
You want mine? This is
that's
where does it
only our sheets right there.
this
They
is-
don't have that
oh,
actual
they don't have-
copy.
Okay. Well, according to our analysis, and we're still 47th out of the states in per pupil funding. And to my colleagues, point, obviously other states are outspending us still. And this is a large investment. Let me be clear. This is a lot of money, right?
Yes,
That we're investing in education. But we're still 47th out of 50 states. And what that says is that other states are making an even larger investment in education. As a matter of fact, 43 other states, or 47 other states. See, that's my math. See, that's a problem right there, right? But other states most other states are making still a larger investment in how they fund their per pupil expenditure, and so it may be an issue of funding versus not being an issue of funding if we want stronger outcomes. I've always also, before y'all kick me off, not y'all, but before they kick me off education, I was always one to say that I think that we as a state really bind our teachers and actually put too much bureaucracy and red tape in them being able to actually just do what they were wired to do from birth, and that's teach. And I think that's if we can find a way to get out of the way and allow teachers to actually just simply teach the kids, I think our children will be in a better space. But sometimes we can be overly analytical and overburden the process so that the basics cannot be achieved because it's just too much other stuff, noise that is being required by us to the people who are actually doing the work. Anybody want that? Okay.
Well, I guess if you wanted to comment, I would say the good news is that our kids are achieving, our students are achieving, and our teachers are teaching these students in a way that is helping them become college, career, military ready. So yes, it's a consistent, it's always going to be a target. We always want to get better. Our teachers always want to be able to have the ability to help their kids get better. And yes, there's a lot of work that these teachers have to do in the classroom. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to kids because they're not all the same, right? We all know one size does not fit all. But at the end of the day, we are demonstrating that these kids are growing and achieving academically, which really matters for their futures.
And thank you for that. I truly appreciate that. And if we're making the improvements we're making with this level of expenditure, imagine what we'd be doing if we were spending at the level of whoever's in the middle of the pack at 25, right? Imagine the amount of gains that we'd be possibly achieving. I do want to ask this question though. Prior to this, many years ago when many of us were still in school and we were, I went to school in Texas, in California. So for the record, and when I was in school in Texas, I think Texas was actually ranked among the top 5 states in education, if I'm not mistaken, or top 10 at least in education. But how do we account for when things were much more simpler, the achievement outcomes that we were receiving when things were much more simpler, and now things are much more complex, and we're not getting those outcomes that we're looking for, or the ones that we really truly desire.
Sure. I mean, I think we are in a time where we are moving back to the basics. We're really looking at what really works for students when it comes to reading. Y'all took on that challenge and made it part of what teachers are teaching right now in their classrooms every day. We're doing that with math, science, social studies. So it really is about refocusing back on what it is that kids really need to know from a knowledge perspective, and how our schools continue to support them as they choose their pathways into whatever post-secondary journeys they want to take.
Right. And this will be my last thing on this. I went to, so believe it or not, I'm the poster child for school choice. If there was a such thing, I went to Catholic school in my early elementary schools, then traditional public schools after that. My daughter went to private school with at my church, Breath of Life Christian Academy, then Star Academy Charter School,
Yes,
and
sir.
then traditional public school after that. But I remember when I was in Catholic school in LA at St. Agatha's, they were teaching us with Hooked on Phonics. And they were drilling it in, and it really set a foundation, for me as a child in school. And I also remember, being taught 2 + 2 = 4 and memorize your timetables, right? But then when my daughter, who's graduated now, but when she was in middle school, she was told that she had to learn Eureka math, which I thought was whoever created that was the spawn of Satan, I think. But I probably shouldn't have said that. But it just moved you so far away from simple 3 × 3 = 9 or 2 + 2 = 4, and there was this long algebraic formula to get from 2 + 2 = 4.
Right.
How do we get to these places and spaces where we overcomplicate, basics in education to where, everybody's coming out confused, the teachers, the parents, the students, and how do we get back to just our simplest form of learning and allowing teachers to actually teach?
Yes, sir. That is exactly the work that we are doing today. We are doing it. We are promoting it. And yes, things got really complicated. And, sometimes ideology and philosophy get in the way of what's actually going to help all students. So I have heard these sort of sentiments from other directors of schools, from a grandmother who adopted her grandchild and was asking me, why can't I just do a long division program? Why do I have to do all this? And I said, that's the work that Christy Brown and her team are doing right now to kind of refocus us back on what works for kids, using the research. We know what it is, and implementing and with fidelity so that all our students can be successful.
Okay. Just last thing. I promise it's the last thing. And thanks for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman. We don't control the autonomy of the private schools that are receiving vouchers for how they teach. Am I correct in that?
Correct.
Okay. So why don't we give the public schools the same freedom to be able to, teach and deliver education the way that we give to the private schools? Seems like a simple fix. Seems like it.
Not quite sure I understand
What I'm saying is, we're not burdening the private schools that receive the public dollars, for in our EFS program or the voucher program, and so we're allowing them to teach in the best manner that they see fit that would educate those children. Correct. Well, why can't we get close to that with the public schools and allow them the autonomy to be able to deliver education in the best manner that they see fit to deliver education to our children?
I believe our directors of schools do that for the most part. They go and they're, the curriculums are local. And I mean, we don't control that either.
Okay. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Next on the list, Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought you was going to give him my question. He kept with the last
He about
question.
took your time.
I wanted to ask about all the work that kind of when Ford decided it was coming to Tennessee, there was a lot of work went into trying to align the CTE programs with the TCAS and the community colleges so that, can eventually have people prepared, workforce prepared. What's happening with that? Has anything changed? Are we still kind of working to that end at the?
I'm going to ask on Chrissy because I know that she's been working a lot with our CTE pathways, but we're continuing the work and working with our school districts in those areas to ensure that those kids have the skills that they need, that, that they will be able to matriculate into into the 2-year to
Yeah.
TCAT or, so yes, I think those programs are continuing. I mean, why stop? This
Right.
technology is going to always be needed, including all the other things that are offered in those CTE pathways. So I think the districts are still doing what they need to do to support the plant that is there, but also to support the whole state. So I don't know specifically, do you want to add anything, Christy?
That's what I would say. I don't have a lot to add because I think that school districts work with their EPP partners, including TCATs, community colleges and universities, to meet whatever those needs are. And when those needs shift, then the programming shift. And we work and support school districts in that way, and we should. We need to make sure that those students are ready for whatever those workforce needs are in that region or even statewide. So they are making those shifts, and we'll be ready to go when they're made again.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Members, that's all the folks I have on the list. So Department of Education, Commissioner, thank you very much. Thank you all
Thank
for your
you.
presentation, for answering our questions. All right, without objection, we will go back into session. We're back in session. And that does complete our calendar for today. Just a reminder that budget hearings will resume tomorrow, February the 25th, here in House Hearing Room 1 at 9 a.m. Do we have any further business coming before the committee? Hearing none and seeing none, without objection, we stand adjourned. We are adjourned.